this simple two-sided market four-corner model, we've come to a real ecosystem with partnerships and many more participants licensed, lightly licensed, heavily licensed, non-licensed, all playing their parts in this ecosystem. So this is what we're going to reflect about a bit. We have different perspectives because these guys all play different roles: Uber, JP Morgan, Veritran, and let's say Santander, but the acquiring part of it, all different perspectives on what are the good or the bad sides or challenges and opportunities of all these challenges. And what we're trying to do is a little bit lively. Maybe I'll sit down and just put my glasses in my glass case. And these guys will also interrupt each other, and if they run out of time, I will politely sort of point them that the speaking slot is over and that the others need some room too. Let me see that, and indeed we are the graveyard panel, of course. So we discussed a little bit before. The time will be too short to go to deep dive into everything that's going. There's just too much going and too much interesting things for payments nerds like ourselves. So we could talk about a full panel about biometric authentication stuff, or financial inclusion and payments, or AI and payments, or whatnot. All would develop topics for a full panel. We don't have that, and also wary, of course, of your but also my own time, and standing as the last ones between you and drinks. So without much further ado, we said, well, if all this stuff is happening from the different perspectives, and I would like to first Gabriela to react to that. There's so much going on, but from your perspective, what is the single most important one amongst all these things like the digital euro and all the other stuff? But what is the most important one from your perspective?
We're moving in the last year from maybe a cashless payment. We started like trying to reduce the use of cash, then we moved to contactless payment, everything that has to do with NFC or any kind of cashless payments, and then we moved to everything that has to do with seamless payment or invisible payment. Well, Rema here is from Uber, so the concept of the card on file, or that I can add my card to an application, and then I just get in a car. When I get off the car, the driver just finished the trip, and then there's no physical interaction. I didn't use my phone, my smartwatch, or anything, but in any case, the transaction happened. So that is where we are going. Has to do also, we don't want to be talking about friction now, but the idea is that the user every time wants to have less wearables or less things involved in a transaction, so we need to go to make that transaction seamless. Also, everything that has to do with IoP, Internet of Payments, every device will become something that we can use to pay or to start a payment. From the other side, and we won't talk about financial inclusion, but the mobile phone is something that all the world, we work also a lot in different countries, so the cell phone is something that everyone has, so not only to pay, but also to accept payments. So from there, we can generate QR codes, links to pay, NFC payments, everything. So we believe that together with biometric payments, and we need security, so we combine that with other technologies, tokenization, you name it. So that's where we think everything is going, to less use of cash, less use of devices, and everything becoming more seamless, and technology is playing a big role here. So.
But let's say the basic challenge, the trade-off between user experience and security will just be the same, but one level up, one level different, but basically the same trade-off, right?
Yeah, always. As we were saying, we were discussing all of us before that if it will be for the compliance or security areas of the banks, there will be no transactions, but the commercial part of the bank wouldn't mind less security. So it's always a trade-off, but I believe that technology can help to always be there. Okay, so since you already mentioned Uber, maybe you can pass the mic to Corinna.
Thank you for the introduction to Uber. Hi, everyone. So yes, indeed, embedded payments is definitely still going to be a topic of conversation. It has been for many years now. It hasn't stopped, so I don't see it stopping anytime soon. And Uber, as you know, is one of the pioneers of invisible payments, when you first took your Uber ride, you would have remembered that magical experience where going into a car and then exiting it and wondering, wait a minute, did I pay the cab fare or not? But you did. So Uber has built on its tech stack on how it can continue to create this magical experience in your head by understanding what else can we do to further optimize. But a small caveat here, if I were to add, we are a big merchant. There will be small merchants that will go through a lot of operational challenges that will not have the capabilities we have, the resources we have, as well as the investments. So if you're listening to this, do not immediately jump the gun and want to do what we do. There is a caveat here, you need to have all of these things in place. Uber started off by optimizing costs, obviously, as you do as a merchant. We are somewhat there already with the low-hanging fruit. And what we look at currently, or what we're seeing that's coming about in the future, is, like many of you, the duopoly of Visa and MasterCard. How can we deflect volumes away from that and route them to much cheaper networks? And this could be FPOS in Australia, for example, the French network for Banco. Yeah, exactly, that one. There are a few different networks across the world that we're looking into, but this is the biggest thing for us at the moment, deflecting volumes. And after we deflect volumes, how can we then affect choice? Now that we've told you, hey, you don't just get to pay with your cards, there are also other methods that you can pay. How do we then nudge users to utilize lower cost networks? And then finally, how can we then add our flavor to the strategy by introducing things that users may want to involve, to invoke more stickiness into the ecosystem, such as co-branded credit cards, maybe micro-lending, and even instant payments. So that's a little bit from us.
But you still haven't answered my question.
What is
the single most important development you see?
Oh,
we now know all about Uber, but
there's too many. But the biggest development for us is multi-routing. It is truly that. It's multi-network routing. Yeah.
Yeah. Just were you implying indeed what we see in Europe?
Yes.
I.e., instant payments as the new infrastructure that should provide a viable alternative to the, let's say, the names you mentioned from across the ocean.
It is a viable.
Supposedly assumed there was a lower cost to have there, or even a digital euro.
Yeah.
But that could be more efficient, if you will.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that?
Not yet. We don't have time for questions.
We do strictly follow the agenda. No, I mean, because we want to rush to drinks. So, I mean, actually, yeah. I mean, actually, I had my notes, but they are so useless because actually, I wanted to retake from my colleagues here. Yeah, because it was pretty interesting. The Uber also perspective and all your experience, right, in customers and what do they need, and then the biometrics that also Gabriela mentioned. And I was thinking, so let's speak about the localization of payments, and then all the regulatory challenges around that. Because of course, if you are a global then merchant, you will have eventually entities around the world, and then you can think of localization of payments, but eventually if you are an European merchant based, so it's not that easy, right? And then it's not that easy choose the right acquirer, because then there is the challenge of the licenses, and which is pretty different, right, from the schemes perspective with global programs. But then if we look at licensing, strictly speaking, so as an acquirer, like in our case, we are licensed in Spain. We can, of course, offer cross-border payments, so passporting the license. But then when it comes to big merchants globally operating, then there is a limit there of license. And when they ask you for localization of payment, then you really need to then rely on the networking, on the network, on partnerships, other acquirers, which is a bit what also Panos was saying, like everyone wants to be someone else because they need it. So we are going so global that at the end it's like the ecosystem needs to make a shift, right? Mm-hmm. And then, so I believe the question was the most impactful development in the coming 5 years. I mean, from my perspective, of course, I look at the regulator activity, highly intense, right? So we are witnessing all the debates and lobbying and so on in Europe, at least, around also the digital finance package, which comes with a series of initiatives, and each of the initiatives needs basically 5 years at least to be developed. And then beyond that, we have also the whole infrastructure, right? Because then we have the DORA, then we have the crypto asset, then we have the instant payments, which this week was updated, and they are already foreseeing like 2 years before implementing that, and then of course they will need to rely on the system at the back. So I mean, 5 years, I believe I will just take from Panos, because he said that change comes slowly than expected. So I believe that in 5 years, actually, we will just look back and say, okay, did we get it right or not? And maybe then we need, the next phase, which will be maybe the, really consolidating this new ecosystem that we are boosting. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. And before giving the floor to Jeroen, indeed, that's interesting. The time it takes to build that ecosystem, and we could spend another panel on platforms that are big enough, or think they're big enough, to do it by their own. Of course, without creating an ecosystem. I saw something from the European Commission about commitments, but that's yet another panel. Jeroen.
You're advocating for a lot of panels. So let's stick to the question in terms of like what is the most important in the coming 5 years. I think.
Like a little bit closer to it.
Yeah. So if I just to place it into perspective, So JP Morgan here in Europe operates out of Frankfurt on the SE. We have branches in every country, and we're huge in terms of global payments processing $10 trillion per day in terms of the value that we are putting through our systems, but very much focused on the wholesale side of the business. We have a lot of banks as our clients and a lot of merchants. On the payment side, we're not into the consumer business directly. We have Chase that is doing that. It's a separate, totally separate department or line of business. But if I look at the most impactful change in the coming 5 years, I would look at the demand side of things, and that is really the new business models that are truly maturing. You don't have, let's say, just the Ubers of the world that are pioneering in these business models. Every traditional business model has kind of evolved into more direct-to-consumer businesses and everything. If I look at how, when I started working in transaction banking, essentially, we had treasury services, became transaction banking, became wholesale payments, and now we call ourselves payments. Really just to focus on that element. It's very symbolic for the need of our clients that are much more sophisticated these days than they were when it was still something far away in a back office under the responsibility of a treasury. Nowadays, there's so many stakeholders involved on the client side that are all required to glue all these systems together that need to work to make embedded payments work. Because it's really that embedded part that is the challenge when it comes down to transparency of information that is required, speed that is required, and everything there. And then the processing itself is for us, it's huge volume business and pretty common, but where we see the most of the challenges for our clients, the industry, but also for ourselves as a participant is really in that embedded part.
Okay, thanks.
So just to stay a little bit close to home and not to try to look to the horizon or beyond the horizon. I mean, the digital euro may never come because that's yet to be decided. I don't want to insult anyone. But some stuff that is happening as we speak are instant payments, open banking, open payments, open finance, embedded payments, embedded finance, as you say. This is a little bit closer to home, just starting to really kicking off, already proving what was said before. It takes time. Open banking didn't start yesterday, it started years already. Isn't good enough, has to get better, but payment systems take time to develop, at least 10 years to get mature and create the network effects to get efficient payments systems. So I would like to focus a little bit on the open thing side, the open finance, open payments, open banking side, because we see a lot happening there. And I think I'll just pass the mic like this, if that's okay with the panelists. So what are your views? What do you see happening? Because you could be a payment initiation provider, you could do the payments yourself with your license. What are the opportunities and challenges ahead that you see for the coming years in open payments, open banking there? And just pass the mic after you've... No, after you've...
Okay. All right, yeah. So, well, we're not a PISP or AISP in Europe. We're an EMI, under Open Payments BV. And of course, we do passport as well, so I think that's one of the nicest things about license, I will say. One of the challenges that we've always found is in working with the ISPs per se. We love the concept of open banking and finance, but operationally, it is an absolute pain to operationalize. And as a company trust a company like Uber telling you it's a pain, and we have lots of resources invested in this, and it's still a pain. It's a pain not because we don't understand how AISPs work, it's just doing a trial and error run and trying to understand if truly the technology that they're bringing to us is something that can work. And we've had this trial and error going on with a particular AISP that we now have onboarded for Europe to do auto bank account verifications. It's still operationally ongoing, and we're still trying to fine-tune how we get to a point where this actually works for the company. So I would say, just concluding on that, because it was an extremely long process to even understand who could be part of the RFP, and then who could then come in to help services, and then to finally get a winner, and then it turns out that maybe the technology is not there yet. It actually shows that exactly what you mentioned, that it's going to take a while for the ecosystem to grow and develop, and it's something that needs to be nurtured. It's like your back garden. You got to water it, you got to talk to it, and as
prune
you do
it a little bit.
Exactly, prune it a little bit, and then when you finally get there, you're going to get the right outcome. But it's not there yet, at least not for us.
Yeah, I think I can echo that. There is, to me, the whole kind of base proposition is just what it is. It's a minimum viable proposition from a theoretical level. To bring that into practice is super challenging. You hear it even from the.
Let's be aware. The whole idea behind it is to foster innovation and competition. That's why the whole concept is there, right? So. Yeah.
Sure. But I think if you look at what our clients would like to see is have it very easy and on a pan-European scale. And I think that is really where the challenge is these days when it comes down to kind of popularity of it. Obviously, every country has its own local payment methods that are sometimes very popular, like here in the Netherlands, Ideal. Some countries have just a mix. Some countries still writing checks, and then open banking becomes very popular. So I think for the average client, that our merchant that wants to see this as a viable alternative to Visa and MasterCard, there's still a long, long way to go to harmonize that across Europe. And I think I see a lot of the, and then when you come down to kind of underlying account structure to really collect these push payments, which it's, in the end it is, there's a lot of additional challenges with IBAN discrimination, which theoretically, according to the regulators, isn't there anymore and has been resolved years and years ago.
It's illegal.
Practically, it's still happening a lot. Yeah, it shouldn't, of course, but that's what is slowing down the acceptance of new technology that we're all trying to bring to the market.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that the key here is collaboration, that the banks, the regulator, the technology companies need to work together. Usually the banks are like the bad guys here, so I think that, sorry, I'm not saying
he's a guy.
No,
pretty bad.
no. But the idea here is that the consumer is in charge of their information, and the originally the open banking, open finance, the idea is to reduce settlement times, costs, transaction costs. So we need to think also in the consumer user and how it can get through personalization better options that adapted better to their needs, lower rates. And from there, I think we should take it, working together, banks, regulator, and technology companies. So I think that is the key and what's really necessary.
Thank you, Gabriela. I mean, following Gabriela's statement, so about the collaboration among the ecosystem, and then the fact that the customer is the owner, right, of its own data. So this big bunch of information about its own life. I must say, so to go back to the vibrant ecosystem, right, and what this open finance will drive us to. Because of course we are coming from the open banking, which was just the start, like we thought it was, we didn't eventually, but it was presented like an achievement, right? When we were getting these APIs after several frustrations, years of frustrations, right? And then these APIs are not working. There are like, I don't know how many working groups, and this is not really working. We wish to, but we don't. Anyway, so this open finance now reinforcing this mission, right, of opening up and empower the collaboration. So the regulator beyond this now is working on the FIDA, so the Financial Data Access Regulation, which should sort of maybe clarify and boost all these points that were not really clarified back in time with the open banking. And the European Parliament is working on this, is progressing, so it's not yet there. There are like many, of course, there is a lobbying activity around it, because of course then we will need to see who will be responsible of what, so the obligations from each player around this FIDA, and then who will be responsible towards the customer, and then of course also in terms of implementation, again it will be slower than expected. Eventually we'll need further clarifications, how data will be shared among players. Actually, I believe there is, they are thinking of progressing by categories of data, because of course this basically impact all the other regulations that are out there, like the PSD2. So for the payment account data, then there is like the consumer credit, data, then there is the investment data,
pensions,
the crypto data. It's like so many data to handle, right?
Yeah.
So much still to do. And then in parallel, we also have the Data Act, which I wanted to mention because, I mean, will be...
Be careful, because I'm going to interrupt you if you take too long.
Will be implemented 1.5 years from now. Applicable, sorry, it will be applicable, it's already implemented. So, I mean, what I mean is there is a lot to do. There is a lot to do, and eventually there are many perspectives from the ecosystem. And then when it comes to acquirers, of course, we are part of it from a different perspective. But of course, ultimately, I mean, we care about the merchants, but like the buyer finally. So indirectly, so it's really a matter of knowing even more the needs and the concerns and what the buyer really wants. So let's see if we will manage.
Thank you. I just thought I'm going to ask him a totally different question than we had agreed, because everything.
We had a question from the audience.
Yeah, but I'm first. Because everything you've been saying about open banking, so we had PSD2 with open banking, PSD2, and so on. The realization that PSD2 wasn't fit for purpose and didn't produce the right results, we've realized that as from the ASPSP side, let's say the banking side, but also the PISP and the AISP side, guys, we've got to stop fighting each other, stop complaining about crappy APIs not doing what they should do under PSD2, blah, blah, blah. And we want more function. We want better APIs. We need better APIs and we need better functionality. Otherwise, it ain't going to work. So this sparked a discussion already 4 years ago in what is called the Euro Retail Payments Board, presided by the European Central Bank. And the project was the API Evaluation Group, and now has emerged, to cut a long story short, in what is called the Setup Payment Account Access Scheme. It happens so that I am co-chair of this multi-stakeholder group that has made that scheme, and that is a co-creation of the TPPs and the AISPs and the PISPs. What do we really want? Banks do want to provide good APIs, but also want to monetize a little bit and not just giving their crown jewels away for free. And the TPPs want good APIs and good functionality, and that's what is in this scheme. It's a scheme with premium functionality on top of PSD2 compliance with a business model inside of it. And this is the model we've agreed with the Commission that will be the example for open finance, because in open finance, for the data sharing arrangements need to be based on schemes with a compensation model. And the example is the spouse scheme. Now, some don't realize it, but those are the discussions we've been having. So it really is to create this ecosystem. We are going to have a piloting workshop later this month with the multi-stakeholder group, with the separate interest group. The first scheme participants are there. Not surprisingly, it's Tink, Token, and TrueLayer, big TPPs. And the question now is, and that is my question to you, okay, we have a rule book, it's published on the website, it's default fees, we don't call them interchange fees, they're also on the website, okay, but how are we going to get this running? So we have this workshop, how do we go about making pilots? So this is everything, the institutional arrangement is there, but now what does it take to create a good pilot? And to see it works, and then create those network effects, and then it will still take years to get it pan-European across the floor, get it working to the benefit of the end user, because that's why we do it. So before we go to your question, I would like to have their answers. What would it take to get a successful pilot? Because you need the whole ecosystem has to be an incentive for every participant, otherwise it will not work.
Thanks for putting us on the spot.
Thanks for going first.
A bit of magic.
It's the wrong seat to pick. In case anyone's
I
wondering for the next
think about it.
I need time to think about it.
Okay.
I'll pass it on to Jeroen.
Should we start there?
I will put on regulators.
No, I mean, we have all the good intentions. It's the regulators. It's everybody.
Yeah.
We just need to do it. And how do you do it? You are
seriously. It is a tough question here. But if I look at the success so far, it is not just the scheme itself. It's really looking at it truly end-to-end when it comes down to use cases. Yeah. So, and again, so for example, if we talk to merchants, the Visa and MasterCard schemes, they have very, very easy ways of the chargebacks, for example, or refunds and all of that. The information that is provided in the settlement instructions can be depending on different levels. So if I look at the pilots that we've been trying to get off the ground with the tools that we have today, it is really around everything just around that. So the limits. Yeah. So I'm working a lot on car manufacturing propositions. So the limits play a role there. That yes, SEPA and SEPA Instant can up to 100,000 from a theoretical clearing level. The average banking interface caps it at 5,000 or 10,000 or whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So you have to really just focus on smaller use cases and all of that. Then the settlement behind it, again, often instant would be great, yeah, but instant is not everywhere yet and will not be for the coming year and a half at least, yeah. So you then settle for either a credit transfer or high value payments. And to get all of that, if you explain all of that to a client with everything that's going wrong, with I think an end-to-end journey from an average PISP is about a 65% success rate. Yeah? Then they say, well, maybe we'll just stick to credit card, come back when it is fully operational across the entire zone that we are active in. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to answer the question.
No, I can just sorry for spicing up things a bit. Do we really believe that the APIs are crappy? Sorry for the word. Just because they can't be done better, there's really problems. I think here that we need to understand that both the banks could not only need to give open the information of their customers, but they could also be receiving information from all of the other competitors or other players. So I think we need to start from there and understand that from there. There's a lot of business. Data it's key. So if you have that information, it's very powerful and you can use it to offer to your own customers and to others' customers the best products and services and personalizing it. So I think that if we understand that everyone can get their share here, it will be easier and it will be smoother to help on these better APIs. I don't know, Corinna?
Yeah. No, I was thinking of, like, because we mentioned frictionless and seamless and, perfect UX journey and perfect results, right? So I believe that as long as a system can be reliable, so you can really rely upon it and you can achieve basically the goal that you need as a merchant or a customer, then in reality, because customer, I believe they don't really care like how we will get there, but I need to pay. Okay, like what I want is I want my Amazon package at my door
tomorrow.
Now in 10 seconds to be instant. So in reality, then the system, what do we need to work? What we need eventually is to ensure that all the ecosystem at the backbone, like everything is working. So it comes into play also the operational resilience, right? That is on the spot now. So.
No. Yeah, go ahead. But I wanted to give the mic to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. So it's a bit
sorry, I thought you were finished.
As long as the experience is a good one, then I think you can boost it.
Yeah, and of course, what you hear always from merchants love innovation, but they're only open to new suggestions if the new product is at least as good as what they already have,
is faster, more secure, and you guessed it, cheaper than
the
what they
settlement
already
is
have.
done.
Otherwise, please go away. Your invitation.
Yeah, well, no, I'm really in drinks time, so I'm sorry. No, I was triggered by your story, the lady from Uber, I'm sorry. If you're saying that eventually you want to search for the cheapest way, and basically you're not from a bank, so I can imagine that you're also looking at other possibilities. And then the thing came to my mind was thinking blockchain, which of course is, I don't hardly dare say, but I'm wondering if you're thinking in that direction. I know that Edwin van Bommel showed us last time that even ABN AMRO was working on possibilities there, so I know bankers are also thinking about it. But it's probably the cheapest solution in the end for the consumer, so that's what I'm asking.
It's going to be a long session.
It's
this is going to continue.
It's just another technology. Which
it is, but then again.
Yeah.
That is a very good point. We have certainly considered it. It's not something we're looking to implement anytime soon. We think there's still bigger parts to explore to further optimize. And once we've gone down those paths, then our strategy may include blockchain. We're not against it in any way, and you've heard our CEO say this as well. But at this point, we're just agnostic until we operationalize what we have, and then we can do the cooler stuff. It's going to need a lot of work.
Yeah, I think it comes to where it was said that time, that is...
as long as you realize, indeed, it is just another technology that will find its way into the back office, but it's not, well, not, please understand, but everybody does it, right? Bitcoin and blockchain ain't the same thing. Blockchain is just another technology. Bitcoin is a tulip thing, we all know. So, wary of time, my own time, not in the last place. I think one final question, observation from you guys, and then I'll start on this side, and then we have to wrap up, I guess. Morten?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know,
takeaway
is...
There was no question, you have a final observation.
Oh.
No.
Because
now is when we freestyle, and this can really go wrong. No, I mean, my observation is like you mentioned blockchain, and then actually I was chatting today with my colleagues, and in 2018 I was one of the panelists, blockchain 5 years from now, and I think I got it so wrong. My predictions were completely wrong. What I mean is, what I see is that, for instance, new technologies like blockchain, for instance, that of course is growing, and we might say is a reliable system, but then, you know, to take protagonism, to be relied upon. So I believe we will need, a European Commission only on blockchain, and then all the regulations will start. It's like, what I mean is, it's so complex to then have, a completely new system, widely used, that it really takes time, because then the players are, we are so many, there are so many perspectives. And then when you implement something new as a regulator, then you will need, to involve in discussions all the players out there. And then again, you have banks, acquirers, merchants, consumers, TPPs, new players, disruptors. So the ecosystem is complex, and I think it's getting complex and more complex. And of course, we are witnessing a swift towards new technologies, and eventually, not 5 years from now, but 15 years from now, we will see the results of all this intense activity that we are having in Europe, at least.
Thank you.
We don't want to be someone else. We are a technology company, and we're very happy doing what we do. We work very closely with banks, so we even work with banks that are more than 200 years old and have awful legacy systems there, and we help them to create better UX to show something completely outstanding, even if down there's mess. So I think that the message is we need to work together again, technology, banks. We also need to always think about the customer, because we were talking about AI today about regulations, but maybe we're forgetting a bit that the customers are the important people here. If we don't have customers, we don't have business, but we will disappear. And for them now, it's very easy to change from one bank or to one business to another. So we were talking about earlier that they trust more Google Pay or Apple Pay than their own bank. So I think we should also focus on, don't forget that we need them, and we need to understand what they need. And we need to work all together, as I said, to guarantee the business and the continuity of this ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it is all about collaboration across the industry and all its different participants. That's super important. If I look at our own shop, we were traditionally a US dollar payment provider for the market here in Europe, but I do see most of the success stories in kind of deepening those relationships through collaborative effort to really be a larger provider to these type of clients for other currencies, for FX needs. And then to the point earlier, we invest a lot in terms of new technology, including distributed ledger. We have a huge proposition on what we call JPM Coin, but it's essentially just a distributed ledger that is doing programmable payments. We're live piloting that actively, but to be honest, it's still R&D type of stage for us and our partners, our clients in that area. And there's much more to do in that area, and we can only do that through collaboration.
Thank you. You have the last word, Rina.
I know. I would echo everything everyone has said here on the panel. For a behemoth like Uber, it takes a lot to make our world of payments work. Without the collaborations we have with our partner banks, with our PSPs, with our treasury teams, and also all the other smaller players that we work with to make our technology move, you can't use the experience that you use today and know best as your magical user experience. So with that, I think the collaborative piece is super important, but I would add there should be a collaborative element as well with the regulators. In the past, as you know, the olden story of Uber and how we used to bypass regulators, we are no longer that company. Today we work with regulators, we try to understand what they like. We are very open and honest about where our expectations lie and what we expect our position to be because of how close we are with our customers. And what they expect out of us. So we are very happy to lobby and carry that voice for them. So I think that is also a piece of the puzzle that needs to be included in this entire collaborative ecosystem.
Well, thanks. And I can only echo that. And I do see that also the European Commission is of the same opinion, because they do see they cannot regulate all these developments, and they would rather have basic regulation and not level 2 EBA or whatever, but have the market. And that is why in the FIDA framework we have these schemes, the data sharing arrangements, which have to be agreed between market participants and not prescribed how to do it. So they do the why and the what, but the how they would rather leave up to the market. And that can only be done in a collaborative collaborative effort to make them really work and make everybody happy, because the regulators can't do it and they have to regulate technology. I am divorced indeed, I'm sorry. It is Freud. It's a Freudian.
Because we spoke about marriage when we were preparing the... not both.
That's the extreme of collaboration.
It's time for drinks.
Thank you very much.